Hi, this is Will Bowen with today's Jumpstart, which actually I'm going to call On the Spiritual Side. As I shared earlier that this week, I'm going to begin doing daily Jumpstarts again. And on Sundays, I'm going to do what I call On the Spiritual Side, and this is my very first one. I call them On the Spiritual Side because that's specifically what we're going to talk about, is spirituality. And I think that's a very, very important, the primary aspect of our lives. And as many of you know, for 20 plus years, I was a church minister, and so every Sunday I spoke, and so this is going to be like that, but much, much shorter. Where am I right now? That's probably what you're wondering. I am standing in my home in our temple room. Now, one of the things that we discovered when we were traveling in Asia, especially in Taiwan, is that a lot of homes have temples, usually on the outside. But when we bought this house, it had a little playroom for kids, and this is continuing to follow me. But what we've done is we have collected spiritual icons from around the world as we have traveled. And some of these actually were owned by people who were important to us, people who were spiritually significant to us, have given them to us. And this is where we sit and we meditate. And I'll show you something I really love, and that is this beautiful hand-carved Buddha that was given to me by my Chinese publisher. So this morning, what I'm going to do, and what I'll probably do on many Sunday mornings, is I'm going to read to you from my book, To You Love God. I'll tell you a little bit about this book. I started writing a daily email about a dozen years ago to people to try and keep them inspired. Now, I knew that I could write it for myself, but at that time, it was mostly, excuse me, going out to people at my church, and I wanted to keep it very spiritual. But I didn't want them thinking, oh, here's Reverend Will's message. I wanted them to think it was bigger, so I pretended they were from God. And it was very, very successful. We did it for a number of years, and now it is compiled into a daily devotional. So today, while I read this, it's April 29th, 2018, and I'm going to read you the To You Love God from today. But first, I'm going to sit down on my little meditation. Okay, so as I mentioned, the idea was not to pretend that I was God when I wrote these. Well, it was, but at the same time, it was to invite people to write their own messages to themselves if God were writing a message to them. And that's something I'd like to challenge you to do, and that is that to write yourself a message from God. If you're feeling lonely, depressed, imagine what God would say to you. So today is April 29th, and this one says, To you, in time, all will be healed. In time, all will be revealed. In time, all will awaken. In time, peace will reign. In time, love will flourish. In time, the time is now. Love God. I remember when I wrote that, because I remember thinking that for anything to happen, anything really great in our lives or in our world, it takes time. There's a cooking process, and we often want to speed things up. It's that old joke about God grant me patience, but hurry. And what we need to do instead is to understand that if it's God, it takes time to realign things so that everybody wins. I've always found that that is true. If it's God, everybody wins. The other thing about this one is that the time is now. In other words, for things to begin to heal, for things to begin to get better, for us to begin to embrace what is going right and to cause that to be into being, we need to do it now. We always think that it's more in the future, but peace begins in our lives now. Prosperity begins in our lives now. Happiness begins in our lives now. All of those things, I believe, are our divine right to be prosperous, to be happy, to be healthy, to be whole, to feel safe, to live in a world where there is freedom and happiness. And all of that begins by the thoughts that we hold in our heads right now. So hold those thoughts. Hold those thoughts for yourself. Hold those thoughts for the world. Some would call that prayer. Hold those thoughts in your mind and attune yourself with the highest and best, and knowing that there is no someday, there's only today. Enjoy today, and we'll talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.